It could be kind of a weird thing to say about a 21-year-old player, but because of his early season on-court struggles, a lot of people, including NBA analysts and YouTubers alike, have seemingly subscribed to the idea that Josh Giddey doesn't have a lot of runway left to grow as a part of the OKC Thunder's roster. However, I do believe that Giddey's struggles to begin his third NBA season needs to be understood in a certain context. Well, one easy explanation could be that Giddey is just 21 years old and it's quite normal for a young player like him to face ups and downs early in their NBA careers. But for the 6'9" Australian guard, it actually goes deeper than that. On top of his age, this is actually the second straight season that Giddey has had to deal with changes in his role because of the Thunder's roster construction. Well, during his rookie year, Giddey actually played a similar role that he had in the NBL, which was that of a ball-heavy playmaker. And in that season, while he and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander experienced some growing pains together, SGA only played 35 games that year, which basically left Giddey with very little time to adjust playing off another primary ball handler. But then, in his second NBA season, not only did OKC start to have their Giddey and SGA backcourt share more playing time together, but the team also introduced a new on-ball player in Jalen Williams, a 2022 lottery pick who would soon become another go-to option for OKC. And finally now, in his third NBA season, on top of the rising expectations for Giddey, the introduction of another top piece in Chet Holmgren, the quick progression of Jalen Williams into near all-star level status, as well as the MVP caliber play of SGA has resulted in Giddey sliding down from becoming the team's number 2 scoring option to now becoming OKC's number 4 option, which overall has caused his raw numbers to drop at levels it's never really been before, as during his first 58 games of the 2024 season, Giddey has only averaged 11.2 points while only shooting 44% from the field and just 32% from behind the arc. Overall, because of Giddey's lack of consistent outside shooting as well as his raw shot making, and also because of the fact that opposing teams can't guard Chet Holmgren with traditional slower big man, opposing teams started to stick their big man on Josh Giddey, with the thought that he simply can't make defenders pay when they blatantly sagged off him when he had the ball in his hands. Which strategy actually did work initially for opposing defenses up until the month of March came, wherein Giddey has started to look like a totally different player from what we saw earlier in the year, as over his past 19 games beginning in March 1st, Giddey has put up a well-rounded stat line of 16 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists per game, while also shooting a solid 55% from the field and an excellent 40% from the three-point line. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, and for the rest of this video, let's look into what's actually fueling this mid-season turnaround for Josh Giddey and why the NBA shouldn't really have judged him too soon. Let's get to it. With the OKC Thunder starting to establish their identity as a drive-heavy team that mostly relies on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams' ability to collapse defenses in the paint, it was really important that Josh Giddey functioned well off the ball, particularly as a catch-and-shoot floor spacer, especially considering the amount of wide-open three-pointers that OKC as a team are able to generate on a per-game basis. Well, wide-open three-pointers are defined by the NBA as three-point attempts with at least 6 feet distance between the shooter and the closest defender. And for the season, no one among OKC's roster has actually attempted more wide-open three-pointers than Josh Giddey, but the results weren't always productive for him. In fact, prior to the month of March, Giddey was one of only 28 players in the NBA to attempt at least 150 wide-open three-pointers, but among those 28 guys, Giddey's 34.2% wide-open three-point mark was actually the second lowest, only behind Jaden Ivey. However, beginning in the month of March, Giddey's shooting turnaround started to become apparent, as since March 1st, Giddey is one of only 28 players to attempt at least 50 wide-open three-pointers, and among all those players, his 40.7% clip on wide-open threes is actually the 10th best mark. And for comparison, since the month of March, Giddey has been shooting wide-open three-pointers at a better clip than known sharpshooters like Malik Beasley, Eric Gordon, and Malik Monk, despite Giddey practically taking the same number of attempts as those guys. And what's even more interesting is the fact that there's really been no noticeable change with Giddey's shooting stroke or even with his three-point shot diet, and if anything, you can simply credit Giddey's increased off-the-catch efficiency with him finally unlocking some confidence with his shot, as after a recent win against Phoenix, Giddey actually stated, quote-unquote, "Probably the first 50 games or so, I used to overthink everything. Now I've changed my mindset going into games where it's like, if teams are going to leave me open, I'm going to punish them and I'm going to make them pay." And that's exactly what Giddey's been doing for the past month or so. And what I really like about Giddey getting his confidence confidence back is that, as of late, even when his shot isn't falling, he's not just settling for three-pointers, and he's actually been more aggressive in terms of attacking soft coverages off the dribble. When he's being guarded by those big men who are typically much slower than him, Giddey's become more comfortable in terms of putting the ball on the floor and using the space the defense gives him to get to the mid-range to launch his staple right-hand floater. Well, that mid-range floater has been a real go-to move for Giddey since his rookie year, and it's been one of his more reliable shots historically, but since the month of March, he's been even more efficient from the mid-range, as since March 1st, Giddey has shot 59% from the mid-range area, which actually ranks in the 96th percentile of the entire NBA within that span of time. Plus, what's crazy is, Giddey isn't just simply shooting over slower big men, as nowadays, you can also see him draining shots on the mid-range against some solid wing defenders. Well, sure, Giddey still isn't the best at breaking down his man with the ball in his hands, but is definitely displaying some more juice off the dribble, while also learning how to use his size more to be able to get to his spots. Just like in this play, you can see Giddey with the ball being guarded by Jrue Holiday, but the screen from Dort forces the switch on Jalen Brown. Then without any hesitation, Giddey hits Brown with that quick cross, and as he drives, you can see him protecting the ball with his shoulder as he finishes the push shot in the paint. Then here, the possession starts with Chet Holmgren, who gives the ball up to Giddey, who's being guarded by Chris Middleton. Now Chet sets a pick on Chris Middleton to give Giddey some runway on the drive. Middleton recovers, but Giddey uses his size to back Middleton down a bit as he creates space to launch a tough one-legged fadeaway jumper. Overall, the increased aggressiveness from Giddey has definitely been paying off, as since the month of March, Giddey has registered the 64.4 true shooting percentage, which is almost a 10% uptick in true shooting efficiency over his average for the full season. Well, sure, Giddey started to find his outside shooting touch and has also continued to capitalize on his mid-range game, but I think his uptick in true shooting could also be credited with Giddey improving his interior scoring as of late. Cause despite him being a big guard at 6'9", Giddey's finishing ability at the rim has been a constantly questionable part of his game, as for each of his 3 NBA seasons, Giddey has only converted 57, 62, and 59% of his shot attempts at the rim, which are all below league average marks. Although this season, the biggest difference is, beginning in the month of March, Giddey has actually converted an above league average 69% of all his shot attempts at the rim, which is actually a career best mark for him. Again, Giddey still isn't the best in terms of breaking down his man off the dribble, but as of late, particularly while acting as a pick-and-roll ball handler, Giddey's starting to get better at understanding how to react around screen coverages, and has also been making a conscious effort to go downhill harder on the drive to be able to get all the way to the basket. Just like in this play, J-Dub kicks the ball out to Giddey, who's being guarded by the much bigger Kevin Durant, but you can see Aaron Wiggins nailing Durant at the free throw line, leaving both KD and Grayson Allen not knowing what to do next. Then you can see Giddey just taking advantage of this, driving hard by those two guys as he finishes the lefty shot right at the rim. This time, you can see Chet Holmgren running a simple handoff play here for Giddey, who's being guarded by a lengthy guy in Jabari Smith. But as the screen from Chet comes, knowing that he'll be switched against the smaller Dillon Brooks, Giddey doesn't waste any time hitting his defender with a stutter step, which is enough to open up a driving lane for him as he easily blows by Brooks, leading to the easy finish at the basket. But then in this play, as Giddey gets the pass from J-Dub, even without the help of a screener, he decides to attack the smaller Dante DiVincenzo. He uses his body to protect the ball and then he goes for the spin move, which leads to the easy finish below the rim. With Giddey's shot making appearing to peak at the right time and also with Shai missing some games as of late, it isn't surprising that Giddey's usage rate has actually increased by 3% beginning in the month of March as compared to the first few months of the season. But what's actually impressive about all of this is that the increased usage hasn't resulted in Giddey throwing the ball away, as he's still maintained pretty much the same turnover rate for the whole season. And that is because when he has the ball in his hands, Giddey has become an even more decisive passer who doesn't even need to over-dribble to be able to create for his teammates, and who can simply thrive by playing off the off-ball screens that OKC usually run to get their cutters open lanes to the basket. In this possession, you can see Giddey's playmaking flair in full display. Upon receiving the ball, he already knows that on the weak side, SGA is going to set an off-ball screen on Cason Wallace's defender, which should give Cason an open lane to the paint. So right here, Giddey just throws the one-handed laser skip pass to Wallace, which the defense totally didn't see coming. Then this time, you can see Giddey operating on the post against John Collins. Again, he doesn't even dribble and all he needs to see is Dort setting an off-ball pick here on Taylor Hendricks, who's guarding Chet Holmgren. Knowing that Chet is going to be open, Giddey makes the precise bounce pass right where Chet can get it as the big man gets the easy finish at the rim. Well, sure, Josh Giddey is still a flawed young player who's still developing his game, but between his improved perimeter shooting, shot making, and aggressiveness, this version of Giddey that we're getting as of late couldn't have come at a better time, now that he's also eligible for a contract extension from OKC this coming offseason. But first things first, in a few weeks, we'll be witnessing the Thunder plunge into the playoffs with Giddey for the very first time, and what's for sure is that what happens then will give us a glimpse into Giddey's long-term viability as a contributor for OKC, and into whether or not he can be part of the team's main core for the long haul. But what do you guys think? Do you see Josh Giddey as part of the OKC Thunder's core for the foreseeable future? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this is Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.